Okay, somebody asked me if this story would make them cry. No, it's not going to make you cry. It may not even make you laugh. But it sort of will make you feel like you're at a David Lynch movie, I think. Something like that. Okay. Well, it is about one of maybe my greatest fear. And part of this story is pretty dark, so parts are pretty dark. I've always been very anxious about being in cars, and I think the reason for this is one of my earliest experiences. I was with my mother. I was 11 years old, and we were going to buy school clothes at a shopping center. It was before they had malls. And this is in Pennsylvania, and in Pennsylvania they had these 3-lane highways, and the center lane was just called by everybody the suicide lane. And you wonder why a state would make something like that. But they existed, and then you wondered why people would get into them, but people did that. So we were going up to the shopping center, and a truck pulled up behind us into the suicide lane. And then, about a few moments later, a car came down the other side, the suicide lane, and they were both going pretty fast, and they collided. My memory of that is that the car attached itself to the front bumper of the truck and looked like a roller skate going into the field with the big truck for about 200 yards, where they disengaged and the truck went one way and the car went the other way. And I was the first at the scene. I ran out of my mom stopped, she was really scared, and I ran out of my car and looked into the car. I had no idea what I was about to see. And even when I got to that car, it took me a long time to figure out what I was looking at. 2 women who seemed to only have the top parts of their body. The bottom part was not there anymore. And their heads were probably attached to their necks, but it was hard to tell. And it looked like somebody had taken a bomb and exploded it in the car with blood. And I stood there for about 2 minutes just trying to take that in. And then somebody told me, get away. And I went home, and I went to sleep the rest of the day. And that image is seared in my head ever since. I've been in 3 collisions since then. I was never driving. I was always in the back seat, somewhere else. So I've had bad luck with cars. But it didn't stop me from getting a driver's license, and it didn't stop me from driving. And even though every time I got into a car, I sort of tensed up. But the more I drove, the better I felt, and so I sort of got over it, in a sense. Well, when I was about 22, 23, I saw this ad in the newspaper, Vector Industries. They were hiring people for maintenance work. And I thought this probably wouldn't involve any driving at all. So I went down there and applied. And I talked to the guy, his name Charlie. And this was in Hawaii, but he was from the mainland. He was from Texas, I think. And he said, no, dude, no driving here. You just cut weeds all day. We have contracts with the military bases, and you'll just be cutting weeds. Great, that's all I wanted to. Now at the time, my goal in life was to become a Hawaiian musician. And I had to learn all these Hawaiian songs in the Hawaiian language that I didn't really know. So it took me about a week or so to learn them, and what I did was I did this manual work. I would go out there, cut weeds, take my song with me, learn a line, sing it, remember it, and so on. So it worked perfectly. And then after learning the song, I would play it and try to get a gig somewhere. So I did that for a while. Now this company had 2 ways of making money. They're all government contracts. One was this military-based maintenance stuff. And the other thing they had was they worked for the city, treating septic tanks, cesspools in people's backyards. And that involved driving. Well, the career of a septic tank acid truck driver is very short. And before long, somebody quit. And Charlie says, Raoul, I want you to do that job because you're the best weed cutter I got. And I trust you. And I really liked Charlie. I mean, I thought he was like an older brother, you know, looking out for me, and he believed in my work ethic. I was a good worker. And I knew that, you know. So Charlie, I want that job, you know, I hate driving, and that just doesn't sound good, like good work to me, treating septic tanks. He said, listen, you will meet lonely housewives on that show. I know because I did it. You will have a blast. So I thought about that, and I thought, what was it about the septic tank job that, you know, was so appealing to lonely housewives? Maybe it was the intimacy of it all. You know, the being connected to what's in the tank, you know. Or maybe it was just gratitude. Because if your tank overflows, your life is miserable. Or maybe it was a macho thing. So I imagined what I would do if I went up to a house and a housewife answered the door in her 1970s crocheted bikini, giving me that look. And I would say, Senorita, I will pour acid in your tank. Your waters will flow like the fires of hell, and we will make love. I never said that. Because if I did, I think what that woman would say was, hey, what you talking, fool? Pour the acid in the tank, get in your truck, and go. So it never happened. So anyway, I said, okay, I'll do it, you know. So I had to have the orientation, and there's, you know, safety is very important with the acid truck. So Charlie said, here is your equipment. You have a visor that covers your face, because sulfuric acid is heavy and sometimes bounces up from the water of the septic tank, and sometimes there's an explosion. So you've got to protect your face. And then here are your gloves, almost up to your elbow. You need to wear those because the acid will surely bounce up and splatter you. And here are your boots. And here's the truck. Now, the truck was a Toyota small flatbed truck, real popular in those days. In the back, there was a metal tank, about the size of a large bathtub. And in the morning, that was full of sulfuric acid. It was bolted to the truck to make it top heavy. There was a hole at the top of the tank to pour the acid in, which was never secure. And there was a spout at the bottom where you would fill up these plastic bottles. I would take these big gallon plastic bottles into the yard and pour them in. That was a dangerous machine. If I got hit by sideways, I would go over, probably turn over, and acid would be pouring into my cab. Now, I always thought about those two ladies that I was looking at, you know, and I thought, what scares me more is not dying in a car accident, but having some kid look at me while I'm dying. And I didn't want people to see me melting on the highway after my truck had turned over. So I decided to be very careful. I got some side mirrors and got those fisheye mirrors, you know, I could see all around me. I had no blind spots. Well, I had to go out with a guy named Doug, a Hawaiian guy, who was going to show me the ropes. So he says, Doug never talked, so he didn't say anything. So he just pointed at you get in, you know. And so I go out with Doug, and he shows me what to do. You go into the backyard, be careful with the dogs, make sure there's no dogs, and you find the septic tank, and then you lift up the concrete cover, which could be anywhere from 5 pounds to 50 pounds or more. Then you pour in the sulfuric acid, and you have to be very careful. You have to start slowly because you sort of have to make a hole in the water for the rest of the acid to go in, otherwise it will bounce up. Now, I noticed that Doug was not wearing the visor. I was standing there with the visor and the gloves. Doug was wearing sunglasses. Doug was not wearing any gloves. So I asked him about that. I said, Doug, what is it? No visor, no gloves? Doug said, no need. Slow. And that was it. So I got rid of the visor and got some sunglasses, and I didn't wear the gloves either, but I did wear the boots, and I went on my way. Now, what I've discovered about treating septic tanks is that people got very attached to, connected to their septic tank. It would be sort of an extension of their personality. There was one man, often I didn't meet the people that owned their septic tank. They were not home. I would just go in there and, do my thing. But sometimes they were home. There was one man, and everybody called him crazy, old, angry white man. He would call all the time, every day, to come and treat his tank, and whoever's turn it was to go out there and do it. And then when you went there, he would yell at you, why don't you ever come and treat my tank? I called you yesterday, you didn't come yesterday, and you never come, you're cheating me, where are you? Obviously the man was unhappy, right? The tank was just part of this. Then there was another woman who was very interesting. I came to treat her tank, and she invited me to have iced tea. And she said, how would you like to see my bulldogs? Great, because it's a boring job, and anything, to entertain you on the job. So she took me up behind her house, and she had these 3 bulldogs in this pen. And she said, they can sing. Would you like to hear them sing? I said, sure, that sounds good. So she got out her harmonica, and she played her harmonica, and her bulldog sang with her harmonica. So here was a happy person. There was another experience I had where I went to the area of Oahu that was very poor and very dry and undeveloped at the time. I don't know what it's like now. And I had a hard time finding this place because it didn't seem to have an address. So I went there, and there was a house that didn't look like anybody lived there. And a woman answered the door. A beautiful woman. Like in her 20s, tall, long, black hair. Never said a word. I asked her where the septic tank was, and she walked outside and sort of wandered around, and she never found me either. I felt that she didn't even belong in this world. She seemed to walk on air. She went back inside, and I took my acid bottles and put them in the truck. And then as soon as I did that, one of her dogs started to bark. And then every other dog started to bark. She probably had about 20 of them. And they circled me. And one of the dogs that was not on a chain came right up to me and put his nose right in my crotch and escorted me right back into the truck. Here was a woman who was just very protective. Either that or, honestly, she might have been a ghost. And there's lots of ghosts in Hawaii, and when they're like this, they have this sort of material presence. So, another experience, I had lots of experience with dogs. I got bit quite a bit. And, these dogs, they come up behind you, they don't make a sound, and before you know it, you've got their teeth in your leg. There's this one place I went to, a really nice place, very large fence around the house. And it was locked, and it didn't seem that anybody was home. And so I made some noise, and there was no dogs that came. So I decided to climb over the fence. And I had an acid bottle full of acid in both hands. And I climbed up the fence, and when I got to the top of the fence fell over. So I'm down there on the ground, spread eagle, an acid bottle in both hands, and I look up, and two biggest Doberman pincers I've ever seen in my life looking at me. And I think they communicated to each other, and they said, "Our prayers have been answered. This strange creature has opened up the world for us. Let's go." And they jumped over me, and they jumped over the fence, and they ran to freedom. The other odd thing that happened to me near the end of the time when I was, I finished this gig, I actually did find the size of a baseball card. I had these wooden crates in the back of my truck where I kept the water bottles and the acid bottles. And one morning I went there, and there was the size of a baseball card. What do you think was there? Perfect image of Jesus. And I was wondering, what should I do with it? Should I just take it home and show it to my girlfriend? Look what I found, an image of Jesus. It burnt on through the acid. But I said, no, it's organically appeared. It will disappear. Well, around that time, my truck broke down. And Doug had already retired. The reason that acid truck drivers retire is that they get hernias in their back. Now, lifting up that concrete slab really gets to you after a couple of years. No one lasts very long at all. So he had to go. And my truck had died. So Charlie, the guy who was supposed to be looking out for me, said, "Take Doug's truck." I hated Doug's truck because Doug had no mirrors. I don't know how he did it. He had no rear view vision. The tank in the back, there's about half an inch between of daylight in the back window in the back. And that's all he had. He had no side mirrors. So I told Charlie, I said, "Listen, I'm not going to drive this truck until you get some mirrors put on this truck." And Charlie said, "No, just drive it today. Well, take it to the shop, and then later on put some mirrors. And just drive it today." And he made me so angry, I said, "Okay, all right, I'll drive this truck today." And I decided to kill the truck. Now, I didn't know how to do this. I didn't know much about cars. And I knew I couldn't get into an accident because that would probably kill me. And I didn't know about the sugar in the gas tank thing, whether that would work or not. But I did have a feeling that if you overheated the truck, it would stop. And you wouldn't go again forever, right? But I didn't know what would happen if you did that. Is it going to stop, abruptly, or is it going to slow down? Didn't know. But that was my only option. So I decided, okay, this is what I'll do. I just, every day I had to put water in the radiator anyway. And the job was at the other end of the island, so I had a long way to drive. And I knew I could go out there and drive without having to worry too much about passing people or merging, but coming back was going to be the problem. So I'm out there, I go out there, and it looks like I'm making progress. I can see that, the red thing in the thermometer going up and up and up. And I gotta come back. And that scared me because I knew I had to merge, and I knew I had to just guess, just hope there was nobody there when I cut them off. So I was driving up the highway, and I was so angry at all the boss and Bob, the guy that owned it. How could you do this to people? Make people lift concrete slabs and put them in harm's way like this? And, I'm gonna kill this truck. So I'm driving, and people are passing me, and they're waving their arms as they pass me. Go on the side of the road, and you are crazy, And he said, but I just have to do this. I've got to kill this truck. So the closer I got to town, I wasn't sure if I was going to make it or not. I pull off the highway, and I have to drive around the city because it's not dead yet. And so eventually, it stops. I go to a phone booth and I call my boss and say, gee, I don't know what happened, but the truck's not going anymore. I said, okay, we'll call the tow truck. And that was it. But that's the, I felt like I really did something. You know, I mean, of all this anxiety I had about cars, I finally killed one. And I never felt I had to kill another one. The one kill was enough. Next job I took, I worked at an old folks home and watched them live out the last days of their life. Thank you very much.